Yo, what's good with y'all, yo? Now, we as black people have dealt with an identity crisis that we have been forced to deal with for years because of this thing called slavery. So in this video, I won't be going in without a careful approach, obviously, because I'm black and I feel for what my people is going through. And I feel for all of the problems that we face in America today. But I have to speak on not just what I've been seeing, but what I've known to be a fact for the last couple of years now. And this is the issue of black women being comfortable wearing their own natural beautiful hair and other natural accessories that God gave to them. Not saying black women are the only culprits to this, because black men, we have the same issue too. Black women of America don't usually show the signs of an identity crisis that black men show. Because you can see a black guy now with a woman of color not speaking what's considered to be a normal dialect for a black person. And to simplify it, basically just doing white shit, skateboarding, and then listening to punk rock. Now clearly these are all stereotypes, as I'm going to get into a lot of those in this video. But still, the black women you see wearing wigs and not loving their natural hair are the same ones who only date black men and are extremely against interracial relationships. So why is this? Why does it seem like the strongest women on the planet have this character of not practicing what they preach? Is it even their fault, or is it a systematic plan? If you've seen my other videos, you know it's going to be the latter. We're going to get into this discussion. We're going to deep dive into it because we have to talk about this elephant in the room that's never been discussed, about when black women stopped loving their natural features and when they stopped embracing their natural hair and loving their true selves. So when you think of any woman celebrity on a red carpet, you think of them wearing a beautiful dress, some high heels, and presumably wearing their natural hair straight or some non-4C curl. But you can bet there will be no question if they are wearing their natural hair, because that would be like asking a man if he was wearing his natural hair. Of course they'll be wearing their natural hair. And to be honest, they probably did nothing to their hair but brushed it after they washed it. But any black woman celebrity you see today will surely have on some hair that either came out of a pack or came from an Indian woman or came from a stallion. And some people might be like, okay, they can wear what they want. And black women will defend this by saying sometimes they just don't feel like combing their hair or making their hair look straight or whatever. And that's cool and all, but I don't think they know how much they're inadvertently explaining to the world that they hate their own hair. And have this jealousy and hate to any white woman or any woman not of color who can wear their natural hair. And they shouldn't for any reason have to feel this way, but deep down they do, because all of this comes from a deeper place, as I will get to in upcoming chapters. But what I really want y'all to see is how much of a problem this is for the black community. If we can't accept who we are in the mirror, we're so far from freedom as possible. I mean, we already have examples of Cardi B's and Sexy Reds leading our daughters, which is already disgusting to think about. But for none of these examples to be natural makes it even worse. We as a black race can't seem to keep it real with ourselves and tell the truth, as our women are not given a great example of how to truly love yourself. Most of this is seen from the media and the stars that we see today. And even in everyday life, I'm gonna keep it real, I see black women that are blacker than me wearing blonde hair and wearing like blue eye contacts, and it's just so weird to me. It's like, why do you not love your own hair? And I just be thinking, like, you can't be serious. You can't be serious by saying you love yourself as a black woman by wearing some of the most distinct traits of a white woman that can only belong to them. And don't get me wrong, white women obviously do a lot of things that the black women have been doing for years. They used to call ghetto and used to call ugly, like the big lips and the big butt. And basically just think of anything that the Kardashians have done. And these things are true as hell, but the issue with that is that they steal from all cultures. That's their culture. Of course they would take your looks and capitalize off. If that's their whole history of their culture, white people have done that for so many years, and it doesn't make it right for us to do the same thing. Black women feel this distinct hate for their own hair early on, as they're told their hair is rough and that they shouldn't really love their hair because other hair is good hair. We come up with these words, oh, this is good hair, this is bad hair, and they are considered bad hair. And we today even still refer to any hair that's opposite of black hair good hair. Even Beyonce said this.
He better call Becky with the good hair.
No wonder that she now wants to make her hair look this way and looks like the woman that she was insulting on that song. I mean, she now is even making like country music and wearing blonde hair, and she looks more like a white woman than ever before. I mean, so much for her loving her Negro hair and Jackson 5 afro, whatever she said when she was pandering to black women. So yeah, even our black leaders will say they stand up for black women, but they don't even truly embrace their own hair, nails, and even skin. Sometimes with makeup, they'll lighten their skin up. This way of black women not truly embracing their natural features has been going on for decades now. And other than the 70s, which was probably the most proudest time that black people have of our own hair and our own features, we can never stop making a fool of ourselves and embarrassing ourselves nowadays, just making ourselves look like we want to look like another race. We can never stop embarrassing ourselves from trying to look in or fit in with the ones who are oppressing us and getting a good laugh at you trying to imitate them. And even more embarrassing and confusing, it would be the black women that hate black men for dating white women or cheating on them, like the Beyonce situation, and they'll go out of their merry way to look like them. It's honestly an insane thing. But there is a reason why, and I will tell you exactly why black women feel this way and feel this discretion and hate towards white women. In their own hair and their own skin tone, it's a deeper reason than you think, and I will tell you why. Now, if we go back into the 50s era where black people were just trying to be considered humans and were just considered property 50 years ago, before black women and men were insecure about their natural features, as you would see in movies like Spike Lee's Malcolm X, where black men wore zoot suits and permed their hair, and black women were trying to straighten their hair in any way possible and make themselves look as far away from what we call nappy. And they would eventually find that nature always comes out on top, as their kinks in their hair will return from the perms and would go back to normal. So at these times, black people weren't even able or understood how to love themselves because we were told we were ugly and tormented, to say the least, through slavery for so many years. I lie to you not. In ceramics class, we made something called an ugly pot, which were made by slaves and were given the name by white people who had sold them in the 1900s. So yeah, our beauty standards have been set this way for half a century at this point, if not more. Not to mention all you would see in movies where white women who were set as the beauty standard were women like Marilyn Monroe, Bridget Bardot, Sophia Loren, and actresses like Doris Day and Elizabeth Taylor, to name a few. Not a lot of black representation for our women in these times, clearly. So as we look at this pre-modern era, we all basically know the story of America, which is racial division, which was put out heavily through this era, with not just propaganda, but very physical reminders. And all of this was a way of establishing dominance and setting the standard for America's pecking order, or hierarchy, as you can say. And just like the rankings of power and standards are set in our world and country, so is the same in our genders. We all know the way we were taught our whole lives is that the man is the leader and the woman and children should follow the lead of the man. And it goes way back to the caveman era, being the leaders and hunting for food while the woman protected the home and so on. So as the black men of the early aughts of the 1900s seen discrimination and were convinced black wasn't beautiful, and we didn't have as many black impactful leaders who would come in the coming years like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Fred Hampton, who would teach us how beautiful we truly are and ask who taught us to hate our natural selves. Black men will be taught to hate their features and want to be like the men who oppress them. They will perm their hair and dress in suits and try their hardest to embody everything they saw white men do. So naturally they will want to acquire and sleep with their women. As Malcolm X stated in his autobiography, black men would dance with black women on a dance floor and do what they call lindy hopping until white women would show up, and as he would describe, they would throw the black woman off of them to get to their prize of the white woman. Now, this topic of black men desiring white women and vice versa is the definition of cliche, as in a country so divided between black and white, these two combinations of gender and race just so happen to be the one that has been the most common and controversial. I can't tell you how black women felt during the years of slavery or pre-civil rights era when they saw either their man or any black man sleeping with or dating a white woman. But I sure as hell can tell you now that they absolutely hate it. And not to generalize, but realistically, I put at least an 87% clip of them in America who despise it, to say the least. I mean, at that point, if you did a poll outside of the South where racist men or who are indifferent to interracial relationships between black men and white women, I would say black women would at least make half of the people who are against her in the entire country. Why is this, you might ask? Well, let's look at it from the other side of the coin about how white men felt and still feel about these things today. Well, to simplify it, they did this.
The brute caricature portrays black men as innately savage, animalistic, destructive, and criminal deserving punishment, maybe death. This brute is a fiend, a sociopath, an antisocial menace. Black brutes are depicted as hideous, terrifying predators who target helpless victims, especially white women. During the Radical Reconstruction period, 1867 to 1877, many white writers argued that without slavery, which supposedly suppressed their animalistic tendencies, blacks were reverting to criminal savagery. The belief that the newly emancipated blacks were a black peril continued into the early 1900s. A mob lynching was a brutal and savage event, and it necessitated that the lynching victim be seen as equally brutal and savage. As these lynchings became more common and more brutal, so did the assassination of the black character.
So yeah, they clearly wanted to keep the purity of their race from what they call sexual predators in black men. And we all know they would murder and lynch black men for these actions, whether they did anything or not. And during slavery, the white women, whether the wives or kin of the slave masters, would sneak off with black men out of curiosity. So all of these things in a way kind of created an energy for the white woman and the black men of danger around the relationships they wanted, and honestly fueled them more because we as humans always want what we can't have even more. These are not in general, it's both sides obviously, but for these things to exist alone proves why black women and black men have this division. As we fast forward today, you even see black NBA players, rappers, and actors who might just happen to end up with a white woman, and it's no secret why the women who have had the black men's back through slavery and honestly have no desire for any other race, mostly due to cultural differences, would be hurt. And cultural differences are just a part of why black women won't date outside of their race like black men. Because if they did, of course they wouldn't have this anger and identity crisis because they would be doing the same thing. But I'll just let Chris Rock explain this.
Real reason black women get so mad at interracial dating. It ain't all black women, but it's most black women. The real reason black women get so angry at interracial dating is because black women are not attracted to white men.
Not to mention, black men or men in general look for feminine women and women look for masculine men. And for the black woman being forced by the system to be fathers and deal with rougher circumstances than any other woman, they would have to be forced to be more masculine and be leaders like a Harriet Tubman or Rosa Parks. Our women were forced to be as strong as the men were asked to be for no fault of their own. And white women were sheltered behind white men and were always stereotyped as nice and ladylike. And if we're being honest, even today it holds up as the black women are portrayed even more masculine through rap music, while the white women are given the image of sweet and nice like a Taylor Swift, and they're all considered innocent. And side note, if you ever dealt with any black New York or Philly woman, you will see what I mean. Go to a TSA or any customer service in Philly, they will be tough as hell. I'm just saying. But as I was saying, black men were made to be some kind of superhuman, overly alpha males who were amazing athletes, and in the modern era portrayed as gangsters, and rappers portray the images of overstating their masculinity due to the years of emasculation from slavery we tried to make up for. So these things would naturally attract, and as white men were portrayed as less masculine compared to black men, and black women were looked to be as aggressive, it would only make sense these type of stereotypes and relationships would spawn. So black men and women stayed close and pretty much held close through most of the 60s era, considering anything else was illegal. But after those times were over and black men were able to achieve star status and had more freedom, all the days of just black men and just black women being together were basically over. Then came the time of seeing black stars with white women, and the proud Afro Black Panther movement of the 70s had finally simmered out. There were more interracial relationships going on. And while the black movement of the 70s held strong, after a certain point we got lost in a world that we have never been before. And that world was the American dream. Black men were more often than a woman, considering the gender rules that we have to achieve star status and to live this American dream. And as the black man got to experience what was considered illegal years ago, they felt like a kid in a candy store, free to have sex with any woman they wanted, basically. While black women were left in the dark, they started to slowly resent the white woman and basically did what black men did 50 years ago, as they started to want to imitate their oppressors of the opposite gender. After about the 70s and 80s, black women would start wearing Indian hair from Korean stores, purposely placed in a hood, by the way, and nail salons, again purposely placed in black communities to help worsen the self-esteem of the black woman and have them act on those insecurities. And so black women would wear weave with colors that white women naturally had, like blonde, ginger, brunette. Black was just straight hair that isn't natural to black women. It's kind of sick to think that black men created this insecurity in our black queens and broke them down and made them feel like they weren't enough. We both changed over those years, whether it was the woman, the chains, or the house in the white neighborhoods, or whether it was the weave, the makeup, or the anger that black women had towards white women. Either way, both of these things divided the black families. Or whether it was the weave, the makeup, or the anger that white women or whether it was the weave or the makeup or the anger that black women had towards white women that they would take out on black men, both of these things divided the black families. So now with some black women willing to even wear contacts, bleach their skin, or go under the knife to compete with the women that for decades were told they were ahead of them and were put on billboards and were told that they were princesses and put in magazines. They deep down basically had a feeling of telling a black man, we're going to give you exactly what you want and we're going to move as far from our natural selves as possible. So began the dark ages of our women running away from themselves and passively aggressively having this anger towards men. But deep down they were just as hurt as us and inadvertently disappointed in us, as they felt that we chose the system over them and they weren't going to have it anymore. So now we enter the mid 2000s, early 2010s, which is basically the era where black people completely faded away from the 90s era of black neo soul, which was basically the last gasp of black people spreading any type of love and appreciating our own culture. In the 90s, we had examples like Lauryn Hill and Erykah Badu, whose music was not only natural to black people by the soul, but also the topics that they spoke on.
Look at where you be in. Hair weaves like Europeans, fake nails stuff out Koreans. Come again.
And not to mention, this era is night and day to today, where dark-skinned women were still put in videos, and not just to please the dark-skinned woman by being a pick-me-ass dude. No, they were actually considered desirable, and most of the top singers in the late 90s were dark-skinned, and female rappers actually tried to sell sex where they were brown like a Lil' Kim or dark-skinned like a Foxy Brown or Remy Ma. Now, of course, the Lil' Kims of the world weren't all natural with colored wigs, which I will get into a little bit more, but this is still a far cry from where we happen to be today. They were still far more natural than the eras that I'm about to speak of now. Even a few years skipped ahead in the early 2000s, we would still have women like Naomi Campbell being considered sex symbols and being in videos, or singing like a Jill Scott and not being ashamed to be their beautiful black selves, and not have to be overly sexualized and unnatural. This will later be mocked and put down by what Russ called counterculture, which is basically why we have the Sexy Reds and Ice Spices of the game now. The counterculture of not just our community but the entire America is basically when we start to rebel against what is normalized because we are bored or basically desensitized by normal living, which is basically why everything that was considered normal in the 80s is now lame in the 90s. There was a rage against the machine, basically. People were so tired of the same things happening, they wanted to see something new. That's eventually just how it happens in life. We just get tired of doing the same thing and we want something exciting. America loves excitement. America loves excitement, man, and history repeats itself. If it's not new, then it's through. Which led to the mid 2000s where a few women would change the beauty standards of not just our black women, but all women in general. But now we enter the plastic surgery, BBL, wigomania, so let's let the games begin. Now we can't put the destruction of natural black women on just two women clearly, or even them using plastic surgery, as plastic surgery has been around for decades at this point. But these women set a standard far beyond just having your nose done or wearing a wig here and there. They made you think that if you don't have plastic surgery, if you don't have a big butt, you're unattractive and you're not a beautiful woman anymore. While also asserting an era where darker skin and natural hair would have to take a back seat for some time. Now, Kim K is known for dragging a wagon naturally, that's no doubt, but her influence is farther than you think. Her and the Kardashians' influence brought a whole new world to black men celebrities who figured why have to be with a black woman when you can get with a white woman who has all of the features of black women that you love, basically. While Nicki Minaj is also black, she had a huge impact on an era of wearing colors outside of your hair with wigs and different things and not looking natural and not accepting yourself became normalized and was basically a trend. It was not only normalized, it was also expected by black women to not wear your natural hair at this point and to not wear your natural hair colors or curls or anything like that. I remember growing up, all the girls would listen to Nicki Minaj and admire her and watch reality shows that Kim Kardashian influenced, where women were hardly ever natural, and if it was a black show like Housewives, they would all be basic Nicki Minaj carbon copies. Black women wanted to wear the wigs Nicki wore, the boobs she had, the butt she had, and Nicki's influence was unbelievable because she was a great rapper, but she had such an outlandish image that you couldn't ignore it, and that's what took her to enormous heights. I mean, all you have to do is look at some of the old Nicki Minaj footage before the fame and see that before the surgery, she wasn't necessarily focused on her looks. And when this Minaj and Kim Kardashian era began, all the black rappers and black men wanted a woman built like Kim K or Nicki Minaj, and it became a popular phrase to say if it's not foreign, then it's born. The Kardashians would date all types of black ballers, rappers, actors. Basically, any influential black man either dated a Kardashian or a prototype of a Kardashian. And as I said, life imitates art, and we started to see the once taboo scene of interracial relationships between black men and white women occur more often because of the Kardashians. Not that it wasn't seen as a symbol of success before, But now with almost every successful rapper or athlete with a Kardashian looking woman, it created a whole new sign of success and a new standard of beauty. Black men in this country want to be successful from poverty, and we always do what we see successful men do. So if you wanted to be successful, you had to get a woman like a Kim Kardashian. If you weren't going to get a Kim Kardashian or Nicki, you had to get one that was imitating them. So it was like they were imitating the white imitations of them by making themselves plastic. It was a real weird occurrence of just trying to be like a Kardashian and black women not loving their natural features. Not to mention, so many black women died from these surgeries trying to look like these women. They got so far from loving their true hair, nails, and body that they basically looked like they were imitating the imitations of them, which was the Kardashian look of big lips and fake butts. Years later, the rappers like Iggy Azalea would pop up to add to the black woman imitation, and she started dating black rappers to further push the narrative of taking all the natural looks and men of the black woman for themselves. Female rappers of the 2010s would start to rise from the aforementioned reality shows like Cardi B, and would show themselves as nothing but sexual objects and clowning themselves for an industry push of the masculine black woman image that has been seethed into our minds for decades now. The last 8 years after Nicki Minaj's run was over with songs like Anaconda, which seemed so insane then, was simply multiplied by 10 with songs like WAP by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. It seemed like the future of our black daughters was doomed by so much sick propaganda. I mean, Nicki Minaj basically had the Lil Wayne influence on female rappers that he did for the male rappers, as you would see the Lil Xans and the Lil Pumps of the world came. It was the same for Nicki Minaj, showing that the influence that they really took from them was their looks and not their skills, as in an industry that is what always leads the way. And the images were pushed heavily with women like the city girls calling themselves whores, and it became a cool thing to be promiscuous with terms like hot girl summer and willing to sell their souls for Birkin bags. And as we fast forward today, the future looks even more dim. Not just for the visuals of black self-love, but the music is completely the total opposite of the messages that people like Lauryn Hill were trying to spread. Today we have the Sexyy Reds and the Ice Spices, whose music not only sucks, but it's clear to anyone with a brain they are industry pushed to destroy our black women and make them believe they can only be sold as sexual creatures. While Kim Kardashian has basically had the same effect on white women, her impact can never influence a community as influenceable as the black community, let alone a black woman whose self-esteem has been stripped to the lowest by seeing women like Kim Kardashian be the apple of the black star's eyes in the last 15 years. A woman get told they shouldn't wear their natural hair for a job interview or a red carpet appearance or even a date because they were told for so long that it wasn't even good hair. We were told that our dark skin was ugly, and nothing has been made more important to women than their looks in our society. So when you're told that you're ugly and that you don't look good enough, this can only lead to self-hate. What can only be described as an identity crisis for what was once our natural black queens. Now, I think at the end of the day, anybody can do whatever they want with their hair, their body. As long as it don't hurt nobody else, they can do what they want with their own body. So clearly, I don't want to tell anybody what they should wear or what they should do. It's not like they're going to listen to me anyway. My whole purpose for this video is to state the facts of the world we live in, and that the women of our community feel a deep pain from years of discrimination and being told that they weren't good enough. We grew up watching Disney princesses and most Disney shows where there were white female leads like Hannah Montana and Cinderella, and black women, let alone full black women with their natural hair, never got the representation in any way like that. All they saw were pop stars and a few R&B stars, and let's be honest, after the 90s, all of those stars were just treating themselves like sexual objects. The things we see happen in the world today come from our past. Like, look at things like dark skin versus light skin. You see that with rappers like Ice Spice versus Sexyy Red about who gets more privilege for their skin tone. It's no clue that we all have insecurities, whether you're black, white, man, woman, it doesn't matter. As long as you're trying to improve yourself, you're doing the right thing. I just truly wish our women would love themselves for who they are, not just their hair, but the BBLs and doing surgeries that can risk your own life. It's just not worth it. If your looks become more important than your life, then we as a people have clearly gone too far off the rails. You're not nappy, you're beautiful as you are, you're not too dark, your skin tone is what it's supposed to be, and you're definitely not ugly, because beautiful is what you decide to be. Beautiful is how you interpret yourself. You're as beautiful as you are. You're as beautiful as you believe you are. I mean, we have been brainwashed since they shot the noses off of the Egyptian statues and practically told us our natural features were ugly then. Nothing is uglier than 1, an evil person, and 2, an insecure person. You are beautiful as long as you love yourself and truly care about yourself and take care of yourself. That's what makes you attractive, is being confident in yourself and loving the true you deep down. What's really beautiful is a strong soul who cares for their family and makes the world a better place and takes care of everybody and loves everybody. That's what really matters. Black women should hold your head up high and love yourself, because once we black people finally overcome all of this discrimination about dark skin versus light skin and hating our own hair and our own looks, we will finally be able to move on into something better. If we finally stop worrying about external things, we'll be able to finally overcome our dark history and hate and discrimination and finally move into the future that our ancestors prayed for, the future of brightness and love and peace. I love y'all. God loves us, man. I just pray that today, every day that we wake up, be the day that we break through these limiting beliefs and we finally be able to move on and truly love ourselves. God bless y'all, man, and I'll be back with y'all soon, man. Peace.
Many years we were told that only white people were beautiful. Only straight hair, light eyes, light skin was beautiful, and so black women would try everything they could, straighten their hair and lighten their skin to look as much like white women. Black is beautiful. But this has changed because black people are aware, and white people are aware of it too, because white people now want natural wigs. They want wigs like this. Dig it? Isn't it beautiful? All right.